Having selected the segments to target and so to serve, a company has to take another very important decision, which is considered again a strategic decision. That is to say, which value proposition to use in order to serve those segments. So basically, actually, this decision is made of two components. The first one is building the value proposition. The second one is positioning the value proposition. What do they mean? Building a value proposition means choosing the features of the value proposition which are relevant to the customers I want to serve. So from the analysis of the expected value, I know for each segment which are the expectations of customers in terms of benefits they want to get and sacrifices they want to make. And I also know that those benefits, from the point of view of customers, are connected to some specific features of the value proposition. So building a value proposition means to select those features which are connected to those benefits that customers are expecting to get. Let's take, for example, the wine industry. Let's assume that a company has decided to serve a specific customer segment, and this segment of customers expects of having a very high quality wine, which means a wine which provides them with status, image, and prestige. So, if these are the expectations of customers, which are the features of the value proposition that the company has to build? The expectation would be per an expensive wine, so in this case the price would be very relevant. The expectation would be for a wine which contributes to the social prestige of the consumer, so it means that the brand should be known. The expectations for the social prestige could be linked to exclusivity, so it means that the brand should be not so available in every shop into the market. So from the knowledge of the expectations that customers have, the company can understand which are the features of the value proposition it has to build. But once the value proposition has been built, this is only one part of the decision. The second part, which is again very important, is positioning it. What does positioning mean? A positioning is basically how the value proposition is perceived by customers. So basically how it is represented in the minds of customers. And basically it means which are the things that customers consider specific to that value proposition and different from the value proposition of the competitors. So building a positioning means basically selecting those characteristics of the value proposition which are relevant to consumers and differentiating from competitors. The combination of differentiation and relevance makes a positioning strong. But this means one more important thing. Not all features of a value proposition can be used to build a positioning. In fact, many of the features of the value proposition can be shared across competitors. It happens very frequently in food and beverage industries. Let's think, for example, of a product which is typical of an area. Let's take, for example, Parmigiano Reggiano in Italy, in the area of Parma and Emilia. So, if I say that my product is a Parmigiano Reggiano DOC, so it is recognized as a real Parmigiano Reggiano, how can I differentiate my offering with the offering of the other producers of Parmigiano Reggiano? So the fact that I am a denomination of origin is not necessarily a good way to differentiate my offering, because it is shared across competitors. So this is usually called a point of parity. Every company, every value proposition, by definition, will have some points of parity with its competitors. Points of parity usually depend, in food and beverage industries, from the fact that me and my competitors will share the same territory. So we cannot rely so much on the differentiating value of the territory if we want to compete with competitors we are resident in the same territory. Or there are some other things like the heritage. So sometimes some of the features that a company thinks are able to distinguish its offering, its value proposition from the competitor's one are really not so differentiating, so are points of parity. And if they are points of parity, they are not differentiating one. They are not contributing to make the positioning strong. The second important thing is that the points of difference, that is the real differentiating features of the value proposition, should be relevant to consumers. Because if I'm perceived different, on some features which are not considered relevant by the consumers I want to serve, how can I convince them to buy my product? Never forget that positioning means differentiation, and differentiation is fundamental for preference building. There is no preference without difference. That basically means I don't give any reason to consumers to buy if I don't show my consumers that I'm different from my competitors. So in order to have preference, I need to build difference. So the main differentiating point of a value proposition is the list of the so-called points of difference. Unfortunately, many companies should recognize that they do not have so many, or sometimes, unfortunately, they do not have at all any points of difference. So they can rely only on points of parity. What does it mean? It basically means that they do not give any reason to prefer their offering compared to their competitors to the customers they want to serve. So this is basically the idea of a strong positioning. A strong positioning is a positioning of a value proposition which is made on features which are different in the perceptions of consumers from competitors' one, and which are relevant given the expectations that consumers want to get from the products and the service. Taking into account the difference between points of parity and points of difference, a company can understand which are the features on which to build the positioning. Actually, every component of the offering of the company can be used to build a positioning. Can be some characteristic of the product, can be the price, can be the quality of the distribution network, can be the image of the distribution network, can be the reputation of the company, can be the reputation of the brand. So every of these components can be used to build the positioning. And this is important to understand and to underline that not only the characteristics of the product, so the technical characteristics of the product, can be used to build the positioning. So every one of these features can be used to build a strong positioning. It can impact the customer satisfaction of the customers of the segments the company wants to serve.